So, going out of bounds with a camera gives us so many opportunities to basically take a look at what normal players cannot see in the game. I always find it to be so interesting on what we're able to see without having to struggle trying to find a Titanic that can actually fly. This allows us to go ahead and go out of bounds within the game and see what we're able to see that you guys cannot. The first location that I chose was the dig site. Now, when you actually go into the dig site itself, and free cam is activated, you are not able to see the live generation of all of the blocks that you're able to break. When you do go down with the camera itself, as you guys could see, it was just an empty hollow of a space. When you start digging down, however, that's when a generation of blocks come in, which is why we always say, if you're looking for something specific, RNG has to kick in. And of course, before we end up getting started, if these are your favorite types of videos, I do have a playlist which has a bunch of rabbit hole videos which I go over a lot of stuff. And make sure you guys like the video as it does help me out in the algorithm, so I appreciate it. Now, this area is the first world fishing section. What I found to be very interesting was that there was this random egg that I actually kept encountering randomly within the game itself. Now, this could be an event egg or a randomly placed egg by the developers for whatever reason. It could just be there for placement for a spawn in, but who knows? I have absolutely no idea. All I know is that this egg predominantly shows up randomly, and this includes World 1, World 2, World 3. So we have this random little egg. Yeah, it looks like this random egg just shows up randomly. I chose to go to a different angle, and I believe this was a different part of the world, and the egg is still there. So it's really interesting to see just a randomly placed egg. If you guys have an idea, let me know. Now, remember the little pyramid area where we had to scramble to find a mystery ticket? Well, this is the same location. It is a mini game. We are introduced to a maze of just obstacles and obviously an opening where sunlight beams in. If we were to exit out of this section, you'll be able to see basically a ton of shapes that pretty much kind of resemble a pyramid almost. However, it's so interesting to take a look at what the developers chose to do for the mapping decisions, because when you look at it at face value, it looks just like a pyramid. However, when you zoom back in, you'll be able to go underground. That kind of resembles like darkness. Like it looks like it's dark, but at the same time, you'll notice that it's just a regular black base plate with fog underneath it. I always find it to be so intriguing to see what the decision is for the map maker when they're making the maps itself. Okay, so this area was really interesting to me. Obviously, you guys already know this is the ice obby. I know nobody really goes in here that often, so it's kind of hard to tell what and where this is. What's the point of doing it, right? But when you do go out of the area, again, like I said, it's always so interesting to see the design choices that the map maker does choose for the game itself. However, there was a little black box that intrigued me greatly, and we'll go ahead and showcase it real quick. I was wondering, okay, wait a minute, this is kind of weird to look at. There is a halo sticking right at the very top with 2 ears on it. After what felt like 1 million years, I finally made it to the room. Now, there is a halo at the very top of this cat. There is a Squid Games event that came out a long time ago, and we did have a cat that looked just like this. And if not, I believe this is the same cat. However, I don't remember seeing a halo at the very top of it. And you guys can let me know if this is definitely the cat that was used within that event. What's interesting to me though is seeing that there is a halo on top of the cat itself. Now, obviously we do have the rebirth cat, and I do believe that these are 2 different that are used as a model for this. Now, at the very section, there is a little area that says build it into games wins, which is the text that we did see somewhere around the Squid Games event, which is the Squid Games room. So I'm pretty sure this could be correlated to the Squid Games event, and this is just a random room that just kind of got left behind in its own little entity within the world itself. I guess it's just intriguing to see because there is a halo on it, and I don't remember seeing a halo anywhere near it. So speculation is always up in the air for me, so you guys can let me know down in the comments if this is the Squid Games cat or not. Okay, so this one is actually one of my personal favorites because it was really unexpected. So we are in Chest Run right now in World 1, so it is its own dedicated section. Now, what I did not know was that this area is surrounded by lava. I had absolutely no idea. So when we are in here, you're gonna notice an entire section with lava, but at the same time, guess what we see and we run into? It is the random egg. The random egg shows up in this area, but as well as the whole section being orange and yellow. And what intrigued me the most was how far this gradient of sunlight and this big spooky cloud that scared me because I had absolutely no idea that there was a cloud in here, how far this ends up going. So I spent like a good 2-3 minutes trying to make it to the very top, and I could not for the life of me try to exit this zone. Okay, so I'm speeding this up officially by 4 times so you guys can understand like how long this actually took me. I looked at the time and it did not take me 3 to 4 minutes, obviously, because that goes over the time limit that I'm inside of here. It felt like it was forever because the progression of this, you can't really visually see how far you're going, and you have to pay attention to the gradient of the entire map. Eventually, I gave up and I exited the zone. The gardening area has its own little dedicated spot as well, so it's its own little base plate, its own little teleported area, but guess what is also here? Yeah! It's that little suspicious egg, dude. I don't know what this little egg is meant to be. I need to know what this egg is, what its purpose is, what it does, because it just shows up everywhere. Now, here is another one of my favorite sections that I never really thought about looking up at. Now, I'll be honest, this little area where Tech World is going to be introduced, this is the final area of World 1. When you actually go to the top of this little platform thingy, it reminds me of like a boss. Like this is the final destination that you would go into an RPG game, and this is where you fight a final boss. I don't know who needs to hear this, but imagine if Pet Simulator 99 had an RPG event where it was strategy based. Food for thought, right? We're entering Tech World. Now, we have a cat, we have an astronaut, and we have a ton of Bleebos for whatever reason that are getting experimented on. I never really thought about it, but who is conducting experiments on a Bleebo? What is the purpose of this? Is this a sign? Are we getting abducted? Abduction Bleebo time? There was another portion that was really far away within the map that I actually saw that had a ton of random eggs, a bunch of the shiny relics, and some random door openings. One of them is highlighted that it is open, but the other ones are completely blackened out. This is really interesting because I'm not sure what this actually leads to, but it is a line of eggs, and of course that one singular egg which made it into Tech World, and obviously the Squid Games event area. Technically, this is supposed to be here because of the teleportation. Okay, so I couldn't really find anything else in Tech World, so we are in Void World. What made this really interesting though to me is seeing the random placements of like certain elements. So we have this one little island here which hoists one little egg. Now, this is part of the Tiki section, but when I actually decided to go ahead and venture into those areas, these are placed completely different. So I'm wondering if this was like a testing thing where the developer decided to go ahead and place these here, or if it was a design choice that they actually threw away, but at the very end, it seems like they placed it just ever so slightly different. It could be just because that I'm not in that area there, that I'm not visually able to see how they placed it. Okay, so I had to speed this up because again, it takes a little while for me to actually move my camera over there. So this is egg 218. Then we're gonna make it up to the next area, which is a dedicated zone for a watermelon egg for 219. Then we're gonna make it up to a different section, which is the jungle boss raid chest thingy, which you can tell obviously there is 4 zones for this, and there is a random base plate there. Then you're gonna see that random glass section, which does have an indication for a timer. So I'm wondering if this is still active for that one dedicated zone. Then you're able to tell based on balloons, breakables, and stuff. So I wonder if this is technically just a zone that we're not able to go to. And when you actually teleport into the real zone, that's the actual zone, if that makes sense. So what I decided to go ahead and do is actually load into the real zone, which has the 220 egg and what we would normally see if we were to do a jungle boss raid. Now, obviously we do not have like all of the decorations in that one little zone that you guys saw earlier, so I'm gonna go ahead and put these side by side because it's really interesting again to see how all of this is laid out versus what the finalization of everything is. Alright, so we have them finally side by side. You guys can go ahead and make that decision yourself, seeing if this is actually a test one versus the real one. Obviously, the real one does not have a random base plate there, so this is really interesting to like look at. And that is basically it. I always like to visually look at things that other players are not able to see. Obviously, if you have a flying Titanic, I would assume that you would be able to do this as well. But for testing purposes and to just kind of learn a couple of things here and there to see what developers chose to do is so much fun. And to be real, I still don't know what that egg is, what it does. It's just randomly there. And of course, we did have that random cat with a halo on it. Of course, I want to strongly believe that this is from the Squid Games. But then again, you guys can let me know down below because I didn't really play or participate in that event enough to actually be knowledgeable enough to say that it is from there. But I have a inkling feeling that it actually might be. And again, as always, if you do enjoy these videos, I do appreciate if you do like the video and even comment. I do have a playlist on other rabbit hole style videos where I do go over some things. This one, however, is not too much of a rabbit hole, but more or less going over things that we don't normally see as a player base. I always appreciate the developers' work on this, and I always have so much fun just kind of like seeing what they choose to do in this. And until then, I will see you guys all in the next video.
Bye.